any candidate for Speaker who doesn't agree with their demands. Joining us now is a member of the Freedom Caucus, Alabama Representative Mo Brooks. Congressman Brooks, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the Freedom Caucus demands described in the media and probably at times felt that they have been mischaracterized. What do you need to hear from a candidate for Speaker of the House in order to vote for that speaker, for that candidate?
Well, let me back up. You're right. The media has mischaracterized the demands of the House Freedom Caucus because, in fact, there haven't been any. We haven't had a vote of the House Freedom Caucus in which we say these are the terms and conditions that we would like to see a speaker agree to before we will agree to vote for him. So I can't help but chuckle when I see time after time the media at multitude of different levels saying, well, the House Freedom Caucus is unreasonable because of these ultimatums and demands that they've issued, when we haven't issued any at this point. Now, we have had discussions about some things we would like to see, but those are negotiations, and those are different from ultimatums and demands.
Okay,
I'd like to see...
Go ahead, Congressman. Well, I was going to say, let's just then limit this to you. Your one vote. You control your vote. What do you need to see, what do you need to hear from a candidate for Speaker in order for that person to get your vote?
Well, there are two things that I would like to see. One on a policy level, another one on a process level. On a policy level, I want a speaker who has the intellect and has the backbone, is courageous enough to do the things that America needs to do in order to solve the very serious challenges we as a country face. We're on a path to a debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy. We need a Speaker of the House who understands the urgency as expressed to us by America's Comptroller General, as expressed to us by the Congressional Budget Office, and who will address these deficits before we suffer that debilitating insolvency and bankruptcy. At the same time, we need a Speaker of the House who understands the difference between socialism that doesn't work in every nation that's ever tried it and free enterprise and capitalism that does work. That's what grows the economy. John F. Kennedy believed in it, and it worked. Ronald Reagan believed in free enterprise and capitalism, and it worked, and it grew the economy, that produced revenues, that helped to decrease the deficits. So I want a speaker who understands the distinction and who will fight for the economic model that works for Americans rather than fails for America and all other countries that have ever tried it.
On that,
I also want...
Can I just ask you on the policy issues? On the policy issues you've identified there, does Paul Ryan meet that description? Is he a person who understands that deficit policy that you want understood? And do you think Paul Ryan is anti-socialist enough for you?
Paul Ryan has made headway on the budget deficits. If I recall correctly, the first budget that he proposed when I was elected after the 2010 elections, sworn in 2011, would have balanced in 26 years, if my memory serves me correctly. That's not fast enough. America will suffer an insolvency and bankruptcy if we continue on our current path within that 26-year window. So I want something more aggressive. Paul Ryan, to his credit, in later budgets proposed by him, he reduced that window to something in the neighborhood of 10 years. We might be able to avoid an insolvency and bankruptcy if we're able to solve this deficit issue within 10 years. Only time will tell. Another major issue is, do we have a speaker's candidate who understands the suppression of wages and the cost in terms of lost jobs to struggling American families by the surge in illegal aliens who have taken at least 8 million job opportunities from American workers on the one hand, and on the other hand, suppress the wages of everybody. Like, for example, before I came on, you were talking about minimum wage. Well, if you really want to solve the minimum wage, you eliminate this artificial surge in the labor supply, and wages will naturally go up for Americans. And that's who I represent, Americans. So those are some of the policy issues. I don't know if you want to go into process or not.
One more note on policy, and I do want to get to process because I actually have a lot of sympathies with you on process. Paul Ryan has said that he is in favor, and said very recently, he's in favor of immigration reform. So he is in favor of having many of the people who are undocumented in this country now become legal workers. So that sounds to me like it's a deal breaker for you on any possibility of voting for Paul Ryan.
Legalizing illegal aliens is wrong, and it's bad for American families in a number of different respects. One, it encourages more illegal aliens to cross our border because we've shown forgiveness. We should have learned from the 1986 amnesty, which was a small problem at that time. The fact that we gave amnesty is what encouraged a small problem to become a problem that's in excess of 10 million people, because illegal aliens know that they can break our laws and they can come here and they can stay here. But second, On the labor supply issue, if we suddenly legalize all these workers, you still have the surge in the labor supply that has an adverse effect on the ability of American families to earn a living, to support their families, to seize the American dream that I was able to seize back in the 1960s and 1970s when I was young and trying to make my way.
So, Congressman Brooks, it sounds like you could not vote for Paul Ryan on the basis of immigration policy alone.
He needs to change his policy to protect Americans from the adverse effect of job seizures and wage suppression by this huge surge in the illegal alien labor supply.
To process, Congressman Brooks, I have to say, when I was working in the Senate, we used to come over to conference with the House, and sometimes it felt like I was dealing with a Soviet institution. The way members of the House are denied real participation in the way legislation is done there, it's done almost exclusively in the hands of the powerful chairman and the leadership. And your process issues, some of them I'm very sympathetic to. Could you outline what are the new processes that you want to get out of this new speaker?
Well, the way things work right now, it's top-bottom. You pretty much get a dictation from the top as to what amendments will be permitted, what bills will be brought to the floor, with strong encouragement on how to vote. That means 20 or 30 congressmen out of 435 are pretty much controlling what passes and does not pass the United States House of Representatives. That's wrong. If that's the way it's going to operate, well, the other 400 of us can just stay home. If 20 to 30, a couple, 2, 3 dozen are going to have that kind of power. I believe that we ought to have a bottom-up process where each member with his ideas, his idea of merits, can be presented in committee, and if they are good and accepted by both the Republicans and Democrats or majority thereof, then it can go to the House floor and we can have that kind of debate there. I believe a bottom-up process works much better than top-down.
Could you, I agree with you on your process changes that you want. Could you, if a speaker candidate said to you, look, I will give you everything you want in process on issues, we will just have to agree to disagree. Is that the kind of compromise you could live with, that at least you have the process that you want so that your view on immigration or taxation or whatever the issue is could possibly come to a vote in a committee with the new process?
Well, it's a weighing process, but the short answer is yes. If we can make enough headway on process issues, that helps to offset the public policy issues. For example, with Kevin McCarthy, I had this kind of discussion. Kevin McCarthy was in large part in agreement with what I was suggesting on the process side, and I probably would have voted for him on the House floor despite some serious disagreements on the policy side. Congressman
Brooks, as you know, all your complaints about process were complaints that Democrats had about process when their leadership was running the ship the same way with them. Congressman Mo Brooks, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.